So moving on to area, I'll try to cover this one a bit quicker, um, and then we'll spend a bit more time on it next class. So the amount of area is the amount of space that a two-dimensional shape takes up. So we're moving over from one dimension to two dimensions. So this means we're going to have x value and a y value, making a shape. So we're going to look at three basic shapes: a square or a rectangle, a triangle, and a circle. So in this, for a rectangle, it's made up of a length, which is going to be our bottom side length, and our width, which is going to be the side. So the area is going to be the length multiplied by the width. And this is going to give us two dimensions because we're multiplying the values together. Next, we're going to have our triangle, where we're not too worried about the angle lines on the triangle and the lengths of those. What we want to focus on is the height, which is from the base to the tip, and our base length. So our area is going to be our base times our height divided by 2. That divided by 2 is saying that if you have a triangle, it's going to be half the area of a rectangle that had a similar base and a height. Then we have our circle. Circle, for area, we need to define it based on radius. So our radius from the center to the edge, our area is going to be pi times our radius squared, which is pi times our radius multiplied by radius again. So that squared is saying we're multiplying the radius twice, but we're multiplying it by itself. So because we're multiplying those two lengths together on all these shapes, that gives us two dimensions for area, and we have to square our units. So let's look at the first example here. So I'm giving you a more complex shape, and we can see the shape is made up of a square and a triangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the area of a square and calculate the area of a triangle and then add them together. So let's look at that square first. We have a length of 2 centimeters and a width of 1 centimeter. So our area of our square is going to be 2 centimeters multiplied by 1 centimeter. Now we can think about this as the two numbers multiplied together and the two units multiplied by themselves together. So we have 1 times 2, which is going to give us 2. And we have centimeters times centimeters, which is going to give us 2 centimeters squared. That squared means we're working in two dimensions, which is what we need for area. So our area of our square is 2 centimeters squared. Now for our triangle, we want to find our base and our height. Now the base is a bit tricky to find because I do not give you exactly what the base is. But because we have that triangle at the bottom, we can see that the base of that triangle, or the square at the bottom, we can see the base of the triangle. If we draw an imaginary line across the bottom of the triangle on top of the rectangle, is going to be 2 centimeters. So we write our base is 2 centimeters. Now our height is even trickier to find. I give you the total height from the bottom of that triangle, or the bottom of the rectangle, to the top of the triangle. So we want to figure out just how high the triangle is from the top of the triangle to the bottom of the triangle, not the bottom of the rectangle. So we have to get rid of the height of that rectangle, or the width of that rectangle, which is 1 centimeter. So our height is 2.2 centimeters minus 1 centimeter. And that's going to give us 1.2 centimeters. So our area of our triangle is going to be 2 centimeters multiplied by 1.2 centimeters. That's going to be our base multiplied by our height. And we're going to divide that whole thing by 2, as the equation tells us to do. This is going to give us 1.2 centimeters squared. So you can just scroll down to your calculator if you want to do it that way, and get that value. And just like we did with square in our area of our square, or rectangle, our units get squared as well. We can kind of think of those units as a separate calculation. So it's going to be centimeters times centimeters. So now we have our area of our triangle and our area of our rectangle. We want to add them together. So we got 2 centimeters squared for our square plus 1.2 centimeters squared for our triangle. And this is going to give us 3.2 centimeters squared. When we're adding those two shapes, we don't change the unit. Just like we do with perimeter, if we're adding, we don't change the unit. So that's the first question. I'm going to try to quickly go through the second question just to finish it off. I just want to give you an example of how we're going to work with a circle. So if we flip to the third page here, we have that the area of a circle is going to be pi times the radius squared. And now I've given you the radius of the circle in inches as being 1/2 of an inch. Now if you like working with fractions, you can. Personally, I prefer decimals, so I'm going to change that fraction into a decimal and say that my radius is 0.5 inches. So my area is going to be pi times radius squared, which is going to be pi times 0.5 squared and inches squared. So I'm kind of just adding that unit onto the side. So this is going to give me pi times 0.25. Now I've written inches squared in two ways, as in cubed or squared, so in with a 2 over it, or SQ and then in. That SQ means squared inches. So in Imperial, they like to put SQ instead of that 2 on the top. Both ways are valid. I personally prefer putting that 2 on top of my unit, but it's up to you. So doing the calculation, pi times 0.25, we get 0.785 square inches. And that is going to be our area of our circle. So that concludes today's lesson. I realize I probably went a bit fast, just to keep the video length down. Feel free to kind of look back at the video, slow it down, pause, rewatch, however you want to do it. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you all next time.